Hi, I'm Alexandria Myler.
I'm Emma Johnson.
We're the admin staff here with the Dave Nelson Group, and today we're actually just kind of giving you some of our own personal experiences. These are, what do they put at the beginning of like parody shows, or like any relation to people real or fictitious. It's not like anything like that, but so these are some stories from when I bought my first house, from when Emma bought her first house.
Yes.
And so we're calling this Things I Wish I Knew as a First-Time Home Buyer. So we each have 3 examples.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you want to start? Do you want to start? Do we want to talk a little bit?
You want to share your number one and I'll share my number one, and we can just go back and forth till we get our 3 things that we wish we knew?
Would love to.
Perfect.
About mine is that they're not in order of severity or
no
like
order of importance.
Yeah, there are no order of importance at all. It's just more of like things that came to mind when we were talking about it. So my first one was, I've actually bought a home in Nevada. Was my first home I purchased, and then I wow, 5 years ago.
Recently
Wow.
enough.
I bought a house here in Idaho, and I was a little bit, my first time home buying experience with home insurance was a little bit interesting in Vegas because it was very much like spoon fed. Because I was a first time home buyer, I was really so impressionable and didn't have like any knowledge of anything behind the scenes. So it was almost like, and in Nevada, they kind of were like, yo, here's your home insurance. There you go. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. This is great. It's on everything. I'm sure that was part of my first time home buyer program. Like, they wouldn't let me move forward without home insurance, right? But
yeah,
like knowing that, and then coming here, buying a home here, so this isn't a first time home buyer opportunity. Then all of a sudden I'm like having to shop home insurances, looking at different rates, and there's a lot of really good options out there. So I guess that's really what mine is like, you can in some different states it's a little different, but if you have the option to choose your home insurance and you have an option to like shop around or bundle stuff, like Keller Williams has this awesome product called Keller Covered, and that is a tool that you can just input the address and it will shop like all the home insurances that you can possibly look at. I found home insurance for like $30 a month when I moved back here, and I was paying way more than that in Vegas. But I mean, I don't know if that's just like a state thing, but
yeah, it could be.
So that was a nice like realization for when I moved here too, because I was like, oh my gosh, everything's so much cheaper. Really, it's not that huge of a process, but it's just an extra thing to do on top of all the other paperwork you're signing, on top of all the other people you're talking to, and you're working, and you're taking care of your, like, there's just so, anyways, so we could talk about that too, but there's a lot of things, and there's sometimes homework that pops up. What was your number one?
My number one, because when we were first time, so our lending program, we used the IHFA. It's the Idaho Housing First Time Home Buyer Program. So you have like your loan, but then they run a secondary loan for you, and that's where you get your down payment from. So we had like no money to buy our house, and I did it anyway. So look, really glad that I did it, to be like putting that out there.
Yeah.
But like we needed to have our closing costs paid, and like we had told our realtor that from when we were like working with the bank that we were getting our mortgage through, and he was like, yeah, you have no money, so make sure that your closing costs are covered. And that was kind of the extent of it. And I'm surprised, because anyone who knows me knows that I like to be in control. I like to have information.
Really?
I'm not really a go with the flow kind of person. So it's funny now, like now that I live and breathe real estate contracts, to look at how those closing costs work. Because I know like we ended up negotiating like a home warranty and stuff through the inspection, and like just some weird things that came with that. But I actually don't, I guess I could check my settlement statements and then I would know, but I have like no clue how our closing costs were actually covered. And I think that for a lot of first time home buyers, that's kind of good enough for them, of like, well, as long as, because I remember flat out telling our agent while we were negotiating that like he countered back with a different purchase price and was like, I mean, we can take that as long as he pays our closing costs. And like that was our lender fees, that was our real estate commission was rolled up, and we actually bought it for sale by owner. But like he had to pay our agent's commission with what we owed her, and like, but I had no clue. And like within the contracts, it's either a percentage of the purchase price or it's a lump sum amount. that like they will pay up to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever for those closing costs. And I like, to this, part of it's because I kind of don't care anymore. I don't really have the energy to be like, how are our closing costs paid? Because it worked out. We were able to close on the house. We didn't have to bring any money to the table, which was really cool as first-time home buyers. That like we had our earnest money, we paid for our inspection, and then we closed. But that was something that
that's still money though. Like that's
an
true. Inspection. You're looking at what, $1,200?
That's my number 2. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll chat through inspection stuff. But yeah, so like that was the biggest one for me, because now that I know there's a lot of different ways that we can leverage that like if you have up to $10,000 that the seller has agreed to pay in their closing costs, and your lender fees end up coming a couple thousand shy of that, or even a couple hundred, like you can add a home warranty, you like having all of your appraisal fees paid, all of your lender origination fees, like there's a lot of different things that can get rolled up into that you're able to really get full advantage of that closing cost. So kind of like, not even like a hindsight is 2020, but it's like looking back, having moved into this profession, that's definitely something that I think like just buyers just need to be prepared for and understand on that, you know, if it doesn't cover all of it, you may still have a few for closing costs, or the seller might not end up having to pay the full $10,000 if they only end up needing 9,500 and some odd numbers. So that was mine on how seller paid closing costs work for first time home buyers.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, because I remember when I bought my first house being like, I signed and my agent helped me and this is what we want to do. But I mean, now the level that I get to break it down to people, I'm like, wow, I would have loved to have somebody be like, oh, these are all these levers we can pull. But I mean, my agent was still fantastic. Like he was great. I think I've even talked about it on other ones. My number 2 is change your air filters in big letters. My house burned down.
But it's very important.
It's really important. And I mean, this just kind of goes into like the broader scheme of like, once you own your home, there's not really any force or person other than a good real estate team that will be sending you home maintenance tips or home maintenance ideas or things based on the topography that you live in, or the fact that so the reason why this even comes to mind is because I have a story. When I first bought my house in Las Vegas, I moved into it and I have a handful of very hairy dogs. I have Australian Shepherds and a Corgi, lots of puppies. And my mother-in-law, in my home, there was 2 AC units and they were both in the attic. And so my furnace was also in the attic. And so there's like this, the filter was like on my ceiling. But we moved in and like it was like just getting into the house itself was a feat. And then once you're in it, I felt like I was kind of like, we won! Now we live here for 45 years. So I remember my mother-in-law came to visit after we lived there for a few months, and she's like, when did you guys change this air filter? And I was like, changed it? What? And
what do you mean?
Yeah. And then she went and bought me she bought me like a year's worth of air filters and left them at our house after that. But
that's so funny.
There was just like little things where I was like, clean my dishwasher. I know that sounds lame, but like there's just like little pieces.
Emptying
where, like,
the P-trap in your washing machine.
Yes.
Like weird little things that...
Or the P-trap in your bathrooms.
Yeah.
Like some people don't even think about that. Like just... Or the age of the home. Like I've lived in two very similar aged homes, but I've lived in different aged homes as well in my lifetime. Like rented them or stayed in them or Airbnb'd in them, and like every home requires different care. It's funny to think some of our sellers right now. I mean, I've had appointments with sellers recently. They've lived in their home for, we'll just say 50 years, just so whatever, 50 years.
They've been there for a long time.
Long time. Bought the home, lived in it their entire lives, raised all their children in it, everything. And as we're sitting down talking about like the character of the home, we're talking about some of the maintenance of the home, like it is sometimes like a love letter that you write to the buyer being like, please take care of this bush this way, these trees bloom, like do this, or like, hey, do you need to know about like all of our water lever systems or the irrigation systems. Like, there's just a lot that the seller can pass on that can help the first-time home buyer too. So just don't be afraid to ask. Because my example is stupid. I was just a 20-year-old who got a house and was like, yippee! And I was just like, whatever. But there are some sellers who like are totally willing to give you instructions on how to maintain the property, or if you have any questions about like landscaping or some of the things that aren't just like common knowledge, or if you're not like somebody who wants to have to do all the extra homework for it, just ask.
What level of time and commitment do you have to give into your home? Because it's like my next purchase, like I'm a townhouse, I'm a condo girly from here on out.
I'm going to
I don't want to mow
studio
lawns
after my house.
I don't want to shovel snow, no way. And I very much take this like, I'm just a girl, I live in my house, which I wish was a joke, but it's not. Like, I just live there.
There's a lot of snow here.
My vibe. Like,
no, I get it. When I moved back to Idaho, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
When we first moved back in Draven's, just shoveling snow all the time. But luckily our winters have been a little less crazy. But
but like definitely prepare yourself as a homeowner. This like, and I already know. I know that I have this mindset that I will never think to change my air filters. Ever. Actually, I might now that this is my life and my career, but I've also never had to be the one to do it. I can't
stop thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I worry about my air filters all the time. Every moment of my day.
Yes, but like we have checklists that we can send our past clients that have just reminders of things that need to get done.
Yeah, winterizing
like
your
once
home,
a quarter,
summarizing your home.
Changes. Yeah, but like as hokey as it sounds, I bought a rather expensive planner that has those things built into it.
Yes, that's so
of
cool.
Like, this week you're changing your air filters, and then the next week it's funny things like dusting off the heating coils on the back of your refrigerator or whatever they're called.
Smart.
The cooling, the thingy, the wires on the back of your fridge that make it work.
But you know what's always
dusting
funny
it off,
is when you finally get a technician to come over and look at that stuff sometimes, right? Like it's like your ice maker in the refrigerator. Like sometimes that could be a thing, like, right, it gets a little wonky or it has like a small leak or something. And you get them to come over and they're like, oh yeah, you would have just done this very small maintenance for any amount of time. And so that's where I just think sometimes there's like pro tips and then there's just like, you need this to make sure your house stays the way you bought it. But
and that actually kind of leads into my second one of, because my second thing that I wish that I'd known when I bought my first house was what kinds of inspections you can conduct and what that outlines. So trying to smooth our transition there, like make sure that you're hiring a good inspector, because a lot of these items are included in there. We have 3 or 4 like preferred inspectors, partially because a lot of them all use the same software that sorts it based off of like, this is a safety concern. Like this is definitely something that you need to look at and address quickly. And then here's like cosmetic and maintenance items. And that's honestly a really good guide to figure out the quirks of your house as you're looking through that inspection report. Because it will tell you where to go to change your HVAC filters. It'll have recommendations on there of like pictures, this make and model videos. of this water heater has to be flushed annually. And it will tell you, like, it gives you those recommendations so that you almost kind of have like a honey-do list of whatever you don't negotiate through on the inspection.
Sewer inspections, same ways. Like, I've gone to so many sewer inspections that really like, and we say this all the time in our conversation, it's like the inspector's job is going to be to find something that's wrong. The severity of that will vary on the property. That's just, you can't say anything's going to be exactly the same or different. It just kind of is what it is. But a sewer inspection, for example, you can get a huge range of maintenance for a sewer based off of the time of like life it was built, if it's Orangeburg, if it's concrete, if it's
Orangeburg feels like a swear word.
It does.
Like it's just.
But it's funny,
not the greatest thing. But
it's funny because there's certain words for us that will like this, like we're like
Orangeburg.
But the same reaction. I've had so many deals with Orangeburg that have been fine.
Yes.
Really. But they've just had to have like the yearly maintenance go in. And then all of a sudden that's a $200 cost a year versus somebody thinking they have to get a whole new sewer system. And that's, sometimes going to be $10,000-$25,000 depending on
if you're lucky, maybe 6.
If you're
but
lucky.
They can get really expensive. And that's, so some context, I bought a very old house. It was adorable.
It is
I loved it. she was good to me. I do remember the inspector calling me and being like, do you want to inspect anything else? And I was like, no, let's just do a house inspection, like the end.
Well, what's funny is,
you're fine.
You don't actually have to get a home inspection.
Don't.
Appraisal, yes, but like, it's so important. Get a home inspection. Inspect your houses before you buy them, please. But just like something that you're talking about, like right now, like you just went through the motion in a way, but you were still like being led through. So at least you got a home inspection.
Yeah. And we like, there were some things that came up on the inspection. We ended up having to negotiate a couple of repairs. Like, it happens with it. With a house built in 1920, that inspection was like 150 pages long of just like odd little things. And luckily a lot of it we were able to do on our own after we had closed, but like there was a plumbing leak and just like some odd things that had to be taken care of. And it was fine. We were able to negotiate through it, but like looking back, especially because I am a very risk averse person, it would have been we had no money. We would not have been able to pay for any more inspections outside of it because they do get a little bit expensive. But you can do sewer scopes. If it's on a well and septic, there's inspections for private wells. There's certain inspections. A lot of lenders will require that you have like the septic tank pumping inspected, like the thermal imaging, infrared. Yes. That can help find like moisture leak, mold, gaps in insulation. A lot of really, really great things. And if you need some examples of reports, a lot of the inspectors in our area have social media pages.
Oh, yeah.
They have sample reports on their website so that you can kind of get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, which definitely can help as you're looking through that inspection report. So that was our big one of just actually knowing the full scope of what we could have tested for. Whether or not we would have elected to do them, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you, but that would have been huge. And I know, like, ask your agent, ask the inspector what other things that you can do, because an educated inspector will be able to talk you through the pros and cons of what each of those will do. And most of them actually have a lot of great resources on hand that they can like email you a PDF that explain what all of them are. So,
or they can at least say, hey, this looks a little, we should get this more inspected.
Yes.
Because there can be where, as you know, lender calls out pieces, maybe the roof needs to get inspected. Like there can also be additional re-inspections to things too that can add up. Or just to kind of continue to piggyback off this, because my third one's also about inspections, funny enough, but you still have to pay for the inspection even if you don't buy the house. So just think about that, because like, as we talked a little bit, I was in a situation where I also was very tight when I was buying my first house. I would say that's probably common with people. Maybe not everybody, but I do think that it's very common for our first-time home buyers. It's very common for people, getting started or whatever. But I've had people before, for one reason or another, they're tight on this, they're tight on that. The loan won't allow more credits. The loan won't allow the disrepair of the home. So if you have an FHA loan, you got to be careful what homes you're actually looking at, because a good agent will remind you of that and keep that in mind as you're looking through the house and looking for concrete crumbling, looking for chipped paint, looking for like those standard items that will get called out.
Mold, water leaks, roofs. Those are something that, like, because sometimes a buyer's willing to overlook it and be like, oh, we'll get it replaced. But if a house doesn't have a good roof, sometimes it will affect its appraisal value. Absolutely. And we've had appraisers require roof re-inspections, roof replacements, roof repairs.
And appraisal is also something that comes out prior. Like it's, so that and your inspection as a buyer, those are costs that will also come out up front prior to closing.
Yes.
You can
Whether you close on the house or not.
Yes.
If a bunch of appraisal and lender required repairs come up and you're not able to negotiate those through with the seller, you'll still have to pay for the inspection. You're still going to have to pay for the appraisal. Some lenders some of them have programs where they're able to like negotiate those costs or eat those costs, but that really does depend, like that varies by situation and by lender. So just be really careful as you're going in, because that's a good one, because that's not something that I had thought of. Because what fit in our budget were older homes. They were homes that needed some work. And I remember looking at some houses, looking back with the lens of what I know now, we definitely would not have been able to buy them. Like, seller wouldn't have negotiated. Like, we were looking at stuff that needed like full carpet replacements and brand new roofs, and like we wanted the cute fixer upper with you that's turning into everything that we want. But our loan wouldn't have cleared, and we still took time to like go and look at those. So if you're ever watching this, I apologize. You know who you are, our sweet realtor. We wasted so much of your time.
But sometimes those are important too, to kind of see what your competition is, or what people in your competition are looking at as well. But yeah, my third one is home inspections are as wild as you make them, because I remember really hyping it up in my head with my first purchase but I mean, at that point it's just so unknown. Like, I'd never done it, and like we talked about, their job is to find what's wrong with the home. So I came in completely thinking, really not knowing what I was thinking. I just walked into this house that I put an offer in on, that I was like, I guess I'm gonna buy this place. I hope it works, because at that point nothing feels real still.
Yeah.
You maybe at that point have turned in earnest money, and then you got your inspection set up. So you meet over at the house, and my inspector was great. He took me through the whole place. He did a video, and he took photos, and he took me through the entire house, showed me all things. And a lot of my stuff was cosmetic. It was like trim, paint. But I also understood I was buying a home that was lived in. I wasn't buying a brand new house. And so I wasn't like I was going to expect all these things. There were some things like GFCI, like outlets. There were like, I'm trying to think now, there was enough that I remember being overwhelmed by, like, I was like, oh, these may add up, or what is this a bigger precursor of? And then ultimately we ended up just doing a credit, and it worked out great. Worked out fantastic for me. I was able, anyways, long story short, my house ended up pushing a little bit, actually, because I can't remember exactly why the first time, but it was something to do with closing disclosures, and that's a whole thing. And then it pushed again, and I was very distraught, but because of the way that everything settled out, I actually got a pretty decent refund from, I can't remember if it was, I think it was from the title company, because they had like cut me out a little, like they were literally like, they're like, we just need to get you closed. And so I actually got a pretty decent refund back from the title company, and I was able like to pay for all of that extra lodging. Because at first I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And it was fine. Like, I have a nice mom, and so I was like, Mom, I was like 19, 20, moving to Las Vegas, so I was free. I was trying not to tell her how freaked out I was too, because I mean, nobody's mother wants to know that their daughter's like couch surfing in Las Vegas. And I was making like $13 an hour. Like, why did I? But again, you don't have. Anyways, I guess the moral of this is you don't have to have money to buy a house. That's what I guess you and I have reached across this. You don't have to have money to buy a house.
That's the consensus.
No, but also I just remember like seeing the other side as being the person now selling that home, because I live here now, so I sold that house. And when my buyer came in and she did her home inspection, there were things where I was like, that didn't bother me. Why does she care about it? But then there were other things where I was like, oh, they didn't catch that. Or it was something I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. Like, whatever. You know, and it's just your due diligence as the seller to kind of keep track of your home, right? And then also like to disclose what's going on in the home and the things you know about it. But I mean, I lived in that house for 4 years, and I made lots of wonderful memories in it, and hosted lots of fun parties, and did lots of great things. So I mean, there was a little extra love, I guess, thrown into it. And by the end, I was able to do kind of the same strategy that my seller did for me, and it was all fine. I got a credit. We were able to move forward. My buyer ended up getting COVID, and this was in 2020. So it was like hot COVID times. So my buyer, she's okay. She got COVID, and on the day she was supposed to close, and I remember my real estate agent called me, and I was like, I I had all of my everything in this house. Like, I needed this house to sell so I could buy my house here. Like, It's very dominoed. And she calls me and I'm like, hooray, we're getting ready to close. Because I had already done a previous sign. Like I was like, I'm signing everything right away.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm selling this house. And then they called me and they're like, the seller has COVID. We have to wait 2 weeks. It's a force majeure clause. And I was like, I know. So it was stressful, but I mean, we got through it. She got the house. I mean, I think I looked at it on Google Maps. I'm a crazy person, and it looks so cute still. And like, I'm so happy for them. So it was kind of fun to be on, I guess, to see both sides. And then when I bought my home here, it was a little bit different of a process because I had to move in 2020. So it was a little bit of a sight unseen deal. But we did get a home inspection and those things. But that was still like, just being not here and able to get a home inspection and get a report and get copies of stuff, like that's so great. Your inspector can do so many accommodations for you as well if you're an out-of-state buyer or if you're somebody who needs to make like timing accommodations or you're just a busy person, that your home inspectors can be very malleable to what you need. And they're so knowledgeable. Man, I love hanging out at a home inspection.
Yeah.
But then I also get like freaked out at my own house. Like I'll be like, what does this mean? But because like I'll look anyways, but and then where you hear like horror stories, like one of my favorite stories, I'm gonna tell it because I think it's hilarious. I'm not gonna tell the name of the person, but thank you for telling me this story because I cite it all the time. I think it's the funniest thing ever. A home inspector was telling me the story that they were going into a crawl space in a basement, or no, a crawl space, and as they were shimmying into the like access point, a big spider's nest fell into their hood of their hoodie, and they like slipped into it, and they felt like just like water pouring all over their body, and then they're like, what is that? And it's just thousands, millions of baby spiders all over their body, and they're freaking out, and they run out from the crawl space, just tearing off their clothes. Anyways, I remember when the home inspector told me that story, and I thought it was so funny, and so I think about that, like, home inspectors are the true hero.
I'm always so grateful for it, especially I have the same reaction every time, because I've heard that story as well, and I'm like, it just makes my skin crawl.
Well,
and
I've been in a house by myself and freaked myself out.
Me too.
Be in a house.
Do not ask me to go in a basement in a vacant house. I won't do it.
Well, this one was fun.
This was fun.
I hope if you have a funny story, or if you have a question about a home inspection, or
first-time home buyers,
or if you are curious about pre-inspections, like people opt for those too.
Yeah.
Like that often will happen when it's kind of like pocket listing, or it kind of seems like, and you know what's funny is I'm seeing a little bit more of like just a lot of referral, like, oh hey, we know this house is gonna go live, let's start talking about it now. Like there's been a lot of commotion in Stonebrook lately. There's been a lot of commotion in Waterford, I feel like, has also gotten a lot. So I don't know. Anyways, just to name drop a few subdivisions that are getting a lot of attention right now.
Yep. Well, perfect.
Listen, that's it.
Yes. The end.
Yay. That was fun. That was a good one.